Hello, I'm Kelly McCullen. Joining me for this conversation to discuss a seat on the North Carolina Court of Appeals is Valerie Zachary, the incumbent, and Rickye McKoy-Mitchell, the challenger. Ladies, thank you so much for being on for this conversation.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
By virtue of a coin flip, Ms. Zachary, you get the first question. And it's a softball, I admit, but it's what makes you qualified to retain your role, to be a judge on the Court of Appeals? What experience do you bring? What gives you the edge?
Well, I think I bring a broad base of experience to the court. Chief Judge McGee calls the court the General Practice Court of Appeals, and I was in general practice for 26 years in Yadkin County. And so I see the kind of cases that I saw at home: elder law, guardianship, estates, you name it, we saw it in Yadkin County. I see it on the court. I grew up in a small town, population 500. And actually grew up in difficult circumstances, so I know what it's like to have a budget and to have that budget blown by an unexpected expense, like a car repair. And that you may not think that when you see someone that went to Harvard and is a Republican. But I think that experience growing up like that is valuable to the court, because that's something that I'm able to think about when I look at a case.
Ms. McKoy-Mitchell, your qualifications, what brings you into this race, and what would you bring to the court?
And thank you as well for having us here. I bring 32 years. I know when I say that out loud, a long time. 32 years really of preparation. 14 years of having practice at the state and federal court level, civil and criminal area. So a vast experience then, but then now sitting on the court, district court level, 18 years, longest serving district court judge in our 26th judicial district. So I've presided in every single courtroom we have. That means that I've done everything you can do at a district court level. And those are the very cases that are heard at the appellate level. So I am presiding over now, after 18 years, hearing thousands of cases. The very types of cases that are heard at the appellate court level. In addition to that legal and judicial experience, I have an opportunity and have had that opportunity to grow up in rural eastern North Carolina, so coming from a small hometown, but then also being able to practice at the levels that we talked about, but also in areas, whether it was a rural area or an urban area. So really getting a chance to see the full flavor of North Carolina. Being able to have that experience both from the legal arena and the practical experience, and having the different perspectives, because it is about knowing your community too. Bringing all of that together just makes me uniquely qualified to be on the Court of Appeals.
In appellate cases, it does appear to individuals, regular Joes like me, that a lot of that, you have to study a lot, you have to write a lot, as opposed to just hearing the facts and passing judgment guilty or not guilty. What is the balance there as you see it? If you were to move to the appellate court level, how does the dealing with the issues of guilt, innocence, all the other issues down around that, when you move up to the appellate court level, how does it change in your opinion, but how does that experience bolster what it is you want to accomplish as an appeals court judge?
That experience, Kelly, which I think is a great question, actually bolsters your ability to be able to move up to the Court of Appeals, because, and as I always say, it's really important to be able to know that there are faces behind the cases. You can't get into a situation where it's just kind of an academic exercise. It's the writing, but it's also knowing that you're writing about a context of people. So even in our district court and my prior experience that I talked about earlier, I've written a lot, decisions in different areas. But the difference about just writing that decision is you also have to know and remember that there are people behind those decisions. So it gives you a context, and what makes it even more so an opportunity to take that to the appellate court is that you know about areas that typically, if you've not been a trial court judge, it's a new arena for you. For example, you have a juvenile court, and I think you probably talk to attorneys and people coming from the community. When you go into a courtroom like that, you just don't walk in there and understand what happens in that courtroom. It's a whole different language, whole different process and procedures, and if you don't know that when you're reviewing the case, you miss that. So when you're able to take that context along with the written portion of it, it puts you in a position to really be able to see both the academic side, but also that very important piece of the context from the practical application.
Ms. Zachary, it's different experiences each candidate. When you're already on the court, it's different than when you're not on the court and wanting to join the court. Take me through your decision-making process and your experience sitting on that bench. How do you walk through a decision, and how do you reach the conclusions and know you got it right?
Well, I feel firmly that my decision should be based on what the case law allows, what the statutes allow, and the relevant facts, not based on any type of partisan agenda. And so it's very important to me that that's how these cases come out. The highest compliment I have received was from an attorney who said that an opinion I authored was not what he had hoped, but that he had a lot of respect for me because he felt like the decision was well-reasoned, well-analyzed, and fair. And I think that's what we all want. That's what we want when we're children, that's what we want as adults, and that's what we're entitled to from our judges and from our court system, is fairness. So that's how I walk through it. I look at it, most of the cases that we see, I've had some experience with. I worked with Harvard Legal Aid Bureau, I worked with Professor Lawrence Tribe at Harvard, revising the second edition of his treatise on American constitutional law. I worked with Kendi Covington, Lobdell, and Hickman in Charlotte on the litigation team. And then I was in general practice for 26 years in Yadkinville, North Carolina, doing everything. So most things that come through there I see. They're not all things that you would see in district court, although I've certainly been down in the trenches there, and I have the utmost respect for district court judges. It's an incredibly difficult job that they do. But it really is a different skill set than the Court of Appeals. Judge Bob Hunter refers to the Court of Appeals as the monastery, and I agree with him. It really is a monastery, perfect for me, not perfect for all lawyers. And so I would like to, of course, stay there and retain my seat.
Follow up, it's the monastery, if you will. We've had other interviews where candidates, incumbents and challengers alike will say, people don't know much about the Court of Appeals. How visible should the Court of Appeals be? How visible should the individual judges who sit on it be in terms of profile, publicity, what they're saying about any particular case that comes across?
There's always an importance about transparency in what we do. The Court of Appeals, however, obviously is an area where you're not seeing people necessarily on a daily basis. You're looking at the transcripts and briefs and hearing oral argument. So it obviously creates an environment that's different from what we may see in district court. However, what I think has been so exciting are opportunities like this. We don't get to, as judges, oftentimes be able to have times with the community to talk about what we do, what the expectations are. So I think it is important for us to be in the community. I'm very much a proponent that a judge is still a member of the community, so I'm very committed to making sure that I contribute to society, whether that means about community service work or service on our professional and civic boards. So I think it is important for the community to see us, that we understand that we're not disconnected from the community. We can get publicity sometimes just by the decisions, what you've ruled on, and that comes. But just seeking out publicity, I think, is still important for the judges to hold that position where the community can trust you. So it's not just having you any and everywhere, but making sure that you're still displaying what you would want folks to be able to trust in, to set that kind of example.
How much, Ms. Zachary, of the role of an appeals court judge is low-key by virtue of the court itself versus the nature of the people who seek the office? Because not many people know, and we're doing these judicial forums, so people can get to know who you are, and you're the incumbent along with a longtime district court, district court judge. How do we weigh low-key, high-key, high publicity, low publicity?
Well, I guess the best way to get to know an appellate court judge, the best way to get to know me and my capacity as a judge, is to review my opinions. They're all available at nccourts.org. I hope people will take the time to look at them. But we were discussing before we came on that most of the time when you hear about a judge, it's because something negative has happened. You know, there's a substance abuse problem, or some other type of issue. You know, when a judge is doing a good job, you generally don't hear too much about them. So it's hard for judges to get the publicity, and then of course to have enough to have the funds for television ads is prohibitively expensive, and very difficult for judges to raise. So, I don't know how to tell anyone to vet a judicial candidate rather than look at the opinions, look at the website. My website's judgezachary.com. And look at the background of the person who either holds a seat or is seeking the seat.
Judicial, especially Supreme Court, but we're not talking about that, at least not yet. That's a future interview with different candidates. But people look to Supreme Courts. I mean, that's one of the most political, all the political watchdogs follow courts, courts of appeal. How do you and would you stay above that fray? Let folks like me get all excited about what you may or may not say, and then stay above it, walk that line, if you will. Because I'll give you both credit. That's both what you both say you want to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think, most of the time when I've seen cases that I have authored mentioned in the news, they're generally referred to as the Court of Appeals issued this opinion. They don't generally name the authoring judge. And so that also contributes to the low profile of the judges. But, I don't know what would be a good way for judges to get more publicity, and I'm not sure we want them to.
How do we know a Court of Appeals judge and a Court of Appeals in general, how do we know they're doing a good job?
Obviously, part of it is seeing the decisions, as you've already heard, being stated. But also, we've learned now, both between some of our evaluations that the bar will put on, where they're asked attorneys about the judges, they actually rate them. And we've done that for the district court, and I was very pleased that I've got a good rating about that and what I've done. We've seen now that shows like with yours, and that's why I was so excited to be here, where you actually put out to the community what is happening, who these judges are, and whether it's going to our website, which mine as well, is Judge McKoy-Mitchell, McKoy-Mitchell, so that we get that out there.com, or whether it means, and we see this and hear this oftentimes, and lots of people do it, they will ask attorneys who appear before judges. And folks share that information. It's amazing the kind of grapevine that can be done among folks who are sending out information that could be by different organizations that have reviewed decisions or been in the courtrooms, appeared before those judges, and after being on the bench for now over 18 years, I've had a lot of attorneys appear before me. And they will get that information out. You can be assured of that.
You both tout decades of experience, lots of bench time, great educations for rural North Carolina. There's not a big difference there, and I don't sense animosity between you as candidates. So we can't really look at you and go, well, don't vote against this person or that, though people will do that. So what sets you apart, independent of who would be sitting next to you challenging you, what quality sets you apart that says, no matter who runs against me, I've got them on that measure?
Well, I think the fact that I have experience on the court. I have opinions there that are available to be reviewed, again, at nccourts.org. I have the experience. There's a little bit of time, lag time there in learning the job. And I've done that. I'm ready to go. My cases are all current, even with campaigning. And I think that the other judges on the court will tell you that I'm doing a good job on the court. I've heard that from attorneys as well, and so I think that's what makes my candidacy a little different.
Set aside the race. You as a judge wanting a promotion at the hands of the voters, what quality sets you apart regardless of your opponent?
Regardless is my experience. When you're a judge or any profession, you're going to have learning. You always want to learn. The law is ever changing. So regardless of whether you're on the bench or not at a particular level, that you're going to do. And I've demonstrated that I'm a tremendously hard worker and committed to what I do. I've been on a bench as a judge for 18 years. That's not a year, that's not 100 opinions. I've heard thousands of cases. And although we're talking about the district court, for many people, the district court, much like as a practical matter for the Court of Appeals, is really their court of last resort. We talk about the Supreme Court, which is tremendously important, but as a practical matter, many of the cases that are heard and have a final resolution happen at the Court of Appeals. As in district court, when people come into that court, for many of them, that will be their only experience in that court. So what happens to them really is a final decision. And so you do want a judge who's been a judge for a very long time. And not just simply a judge, but a judge who has done well, been rated highly by the bar, the other judges, the community, that has been awarded in recognition of that outstanding judicial leadership and community service. Again, that commitment to our community. So regardless of who else would be on the other side, North Carolina deserves judges who are experienced, fair, not for one side or the other, committed and respected. And that's who I am, Judge Rickye McKoy-Mitchell. And that's why I deserve and am uniquely qualified to be on the Court of Appeals.
One more round of questioning, and then this conversation is over. Ms. Zachary, I'll ask you a two-pronged question, and we'll wrap it up. I'll give her the last word. What's even from a judge's standpoint, what's the judicial climate in North Carolina right now? As a reporter, I see a lot of cases go here and there, whichever court you want to file it. People like to sue, or they like to get opinions. How do you see the climate from someone looking down at all of us, bringing our cases that may or may not come to you? And if given another term, what can voters expect?
Well, I think if given another term, voters can expect the same from me. I think I've been very consistent because I just apply the law. It has nothing to do with partisan ideology. I just apply the law, so the relevant facts being the same, the relevant case law or statutes being the same, you're going to get the same decision out of me. And I have been a very hard worker. I have been kept up with my caseload. The Court of Appeals is known as the workhorse of the judiciary. We issued last year, I think, were disposed of over 4,100 petitions and motions, issued over 1,100 opinions, and there are more out there to do, and the court cannot afford to have anybody that's not pulling their weight. They can expect me to pull my weight.
And the last word by coin flip, Ms. McKoy-Mitchell. If voters elect you, what will they get from the new appellate court judge?
Thank you again for the opportunity. And they will get a judge who is experienced, a judge who has demonstrated fairness, impartiality, integrity, hard work, committed and respected, and one who will make them very proud, as I've done on the district court level, of the work that I do. They will get a judge that they deserve, and that's one that's been trial tested and demonstrated that they are more than qualified to be in that position. And so I am excited about the opportunity, and I ask the citizens of North Carolina to support, as they have agreed with me in the past, to continue to do so in seeking the North Carolina Court of Appeals, Judge Rickye McKoy-Mitchell.
There you have it, North Carolinians. Rickye McKoy-Mitchell challenging Valerie Zachary for the North Carolina Court of Appeals seat. Thank you so much, both of you, for being part of this conversation.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.